I'm Chen. 大家好，我是崔晨 and this is A Day in Beijing. Okay, the Forbidden City. I'm giving this 3 episodes because it simply deserves it. Let me tell you what each one does so you can pick what works for you. This one, episode 1, is a foundation. And I mean that literally. Before I talk about the palace, I need to talk about China. Because if I just throw out Ming Dynasty or Confucian principles at you with no context, you're going to zone out, and I definitely don't want that. Episode 2, the story behind the Red Gates. This is where we look at the Forbidden City closer, not just appearances, but on the social structure behind it as well. How every color, every number, every little creature on the rooftop is trying to tell you something. The concubine system, the destruction, the fires, the looting, and did you know there's more than one Forbidden City in China? We'll get into that in episode 2. In episode 3, or last episode of this series about Forbidden City, 600 years and 30 minutes. Yes, you heard it right, 30 minutes. This is where we walk inside the Forbidden City, a virtual companion guide. If you're visiting, listen to this one. Theoretically speaking, you won't need a tour guide anymore. We're gonna walk through south entrance to the north exit, stop by stop. Whether you're there in person or on your sofa, I've got your back. All 3 episodes work on their own. Together, they build on each other. And let's start at the beginning. China 101. China, 中国, literally translates to the Middle Kingdom, as in the center of the world. That's what the name means, and is one of the oldest continuous civilization on Earth. 5,000 years of recorded history. The US is about 250 years old. No shame on US, just a comparison. The UK as a unified kingdom, about 1,000 years old. Again, no shame on the UK. China, on the other hand, has been building, inventing, and reinventing itself for 5 millennia. For most of that history, China was ruled by what we call dynasties. A dynasty is one ruling family. One family holds power, sometimes for decades, sometimes for centuries. When they disappear or transition through war, rebellions, or just losing the people's faith. A new family takes over, new dynasty. And China has had dozens of dynasties across 5,000 years. And China is not one homogeneous culture. There are 56 officially recognized ethnicity groups. The largest by far is Han Chinese, Hanzu, about 92% of the population today. For most of China's imperial history, the ruling families were Han, but not always. And that not always part is crucial for the Forbidden City story. The other 55 groups include Manchu, Mongolians, Tibetans, Uyghur, Hui, Miao, and many more. Each has its own language, traditions, food, clothing. 2 of those groups, the Mongolians and the Manchurians, ended up ruling the entire country, and both of them shaped the Forbidden City. The 3 dynasties you need to know. To understand the Forbidden Cities, you need to know 3 dynasties. Let me talk you through them quickly, and I promise knowing these 3 changes how you see the entire place. First of all, the Yuan dynasty, 1272 to 1368. This is Mongolian dynasty. You've probably heard of Genghis Khan, the warrior who built the largest land empire in human history. His grandson, Kublai Khan, completed the conquest of China. Now, you need to know before the Mongolians, China had been ruled by a Song dynasty, which was Han Chinese. Remember the largest ethnicity that takes up almost 92% of the population? Yeah, them. The Song dynasty, aka the Han people, had their capital down south. When the Mongolians took over, Kublai Khan moved the capital north to Beijing. He called it Dadu, Great Capital, and built the first imperial palace roughly where the Forbidden City stands today. So, Beijing became imperial capital not because of a Han Chinese decision, but because of the Mongolians choose it. A conquered dynasty picking a northern city as their seat of power. So, the Mongolians ruled for about 100 years. They adopted some Han Chinese customs, but were never fully embraced by the Han population. Eventually, in 1368, a Han Chinese rebel leader named Zhu Yuanzhang overthrew the Mongolians and founded the next dynasty, the Ming dynasty, which is the second one we're going to talk about. The Ming dynasty, 1368 to 1644, Han Chinese. This is the dynasty that built the Forbidden City. Zhu Yuanzhang moved the capital back south to Nanjing. He demolished the Mongolian palaces in Beijing and the city was downgraded. But then, this is where the story gets wild. His son changed everything. And I'll tell you that story in a minute. So, the Ming dynasty lasted 276 years. 14 Ming emperors lived in the Forbidden City. They designed the layout, the ceremony and structure based on the Confucian principles. The Ming Forbidden City was original, though very little of their construction survived today because of the fire, which is quite sad, to be honest. Then we move to the third dynasty you need to know about, the Qing dynasty, 1644 to 1912. This is the Manchurian dynasty. The Manchu are not the non-Han ethnicity, from the northeast of China, a region called Manchurian. Before they conquered Beijing, they had their own imperial palace in the city called Shenyang. Remember the city, it will come back in the next episode. Anyway, in 1644, the Ming dynasty collapsed in a massive rebellion. A rebel army captured Beijing and burned most of the Forbidden City. The Manchu armies swooped in from the northeast, defeated the rebels, and took over. They moved into the ruins and spent the next 50 years rebuilding. Shamanic temples appeared alongside Confucian spaces. Tibetan Buddhist elements were added. The Qing governed a multi-ethnic empire. Han, Manchurians, Mongolians, Tibetans, and they used the Forbidden City to speak to all of this group simultaneously. The palace became not just Chinese, but a multilingual, multicultural political tool. And each dynasty brought its own color identity. The Mongolians favored white and blue. The Ming chose red and yellow. And the Qing kept the Ming's color but added green and blue. The Chinese color scheme could be a whole nother episode, so we won't dig in too much here. But if you know this, you know when you see a green-roofed building in the Forbidden City, it often signals a Qing addition. So when you walk through the Forbidden City, you're not seeing one version. You're seeing three dynasties layered on top of each other. Yuan geography, Ming foundations, Qing reconstructions. It's like a master's oil painting, one layer on another layer. each dynasty, writing over the last dynasty without completely erasing it. Confucianism, 儒家. There's one more thing you need to know before we get into the palace itself. Confucianism, 孔子, known in the West as Confucius, was a philosopher born around 551 BC. His ideas became the foundation of Chinese society from roughly the Han Dynasty onward. That's over 2,000 years as a dominant social philosophy. Think of it like as Christianity shaped European society and its buildings for centuries, Confucianism did the same for China. The core idea, a good society works when everyone knows their role. There is hierarchy, ruler above subject, parent above child, husband above wife, older sibling above younger. If anyone respects their position and acts correctly within it, things work. If they don't, chaos. Two values sit at the heart of it. One is 孝顺, which I don't think I can find a direct translation in English because I simply don't think in English-speaking countries this concept is a thing. Obviously, forgive me if my ignorance is in my way, as English is my second language, it's not my mother tongue. So yeah, I don't think I can find a direct translation. But 孝顺 in Chinese means we all need to respect our parents and elders, taking care of them, honoring their wishes. This is one of the most deeply held values in Chinese culture today. If you're not 孝顺, then you are not a good person. The second thing is called 谦卑, which roughly I will translate into modesty, knowing your place, not overstepping, deferring to those who are above you. And I think that is another reason why Chinese people always quite quiet in a way on the international or global platform. And it's because of 谦卑. We are told for 2,000 years to know a place, to be quiet, never shout about our success. Now, I know some of the ideas I just talked about earlier doesn't sound quite like modern China, and it's true that Confucianism about rigid hierarchy and gender roles have evolved massively. Contemporary China is a completely different place, but the foundation is still there. The emphasis on family, the respect for elders, to be polite and modest. These are Confucian values that are still alive and well. You will feel them the moment you spend time with a Chinese family or, a couple of Chinese friends. Why does this matter for the Forbidden City? Because the entire palace is a Confucianism made physical. The layout, the king is at the center, public business in front, private family behind, the hierarchy, the size of your building, the color of your roof, even the number of accessories on your door. They were all designed to tell everyone your exact rank in society. We'll get into that more in episode 2. Why Beijing? So, Beijing literally means northern capital. Now you know the Mongol Yuan dynasty made it the capital in the 1270s. You know the Ming founder moved the capital back south to Nanjing after overthrowing the Mongolians. Beijing was demoted. The Mongolians' palace were demolished. That should have been the end of the story. But that wasn't. The Ming founder, remember Zhu Yuanzhang? He had lots of sons and grandsons, and he chose his oldest grandson as his heir when he died. in 1378. That grandson named Jianwen became the emperor. Now picture this. You are Jianwen, you're young, you just inherited the biggest country on earth. And your uncle, your father's brother, is a powerful military commander stationed up in Beijing. And he's looking at you on that throne, thinking, that should be mine. That uncle was Zhu Di. And he didn't just think about it. He launched a civil war against his own nephew. Uncle against nephew, 3 years of war, 1399 to 1402. Zhu Di won, the uncle won. His nephew Jianwen disappeared. Historians still don't know if he was killed or escaped. Zhu Di took the throne, named himself Yongle Empire, 永乐大帝, meaning perpetual happiness. But everyone knew how he got the job. He's taken it by force. In Chinese political philosophy, the right to rule comes from 天命, which is the mandate of heaven. Heaven grants you the throne because you're just and virtuous. Steal it from your own nephew, that doesn't exactly inspire confidence in your heavenly mandate. So what do you do when your claim to power is on shaky ground? Let me think. You know what? You can build something that nobody can argue with. You move the capital from Nanjing, where the court is still whisper about how you got the throne, back to Beijing, where your army is loyal, your power base is strong, and you construct the largest palace complex in human history. Yes, you heard it right. That's the origin of the Forbidden City. It wasn't built from confidence. It was built to create confidence. Every stone, every beam, every golden tile is our argument. I belong here. Look at what I have built. Could an unjust, fake king do this? I don't think so. The Grand Canal and the construction. Construction started in 1406, and the logistics are staggering. The Yongle king needed materials from across the entire country. Nanmu, one of the rarest and most beautiful hardwood in China, used for the main columns and beams. These trees grow in the forest in Sichuan and Yunnan, over 1,800 kilometers southwest of Beijing. The logs took up to 4 years to float downriver to the capital. Golden floor tiles made 1,000 kilometers south. 18 million bricks, each weighing 24 kilograms. Marble from quarries outside of Beijing. But here's the thing that made all of this possible. 京杭大运河, the Grand Canal, the longest artificial waterway in the whole world. Longer than the Panama and Suez canals combined. It connects Hangzhou in the south to Beijing in the north, roughly 1,800 kilometers. Parts of it are over 2,500 years old, but the Yongle king extended and unified it specifically to ship construction materials north. In Chinese, there's a saying, the Forbidden City drifted here, and it's literally true. 20,000 barges carrying logs, bricks, tiles, stones, plus 200 million liters of rice every year to feed the workers, because we're talking about 1 million workers plus 100,000 specialized craftsmen. And the marbles, what do we do about them? The massive carved slabs for the staircases and terrace, those were too heavy for the boats. So they waited for the winter, poured water on the roads and let it freeze overnight and slid the stones across the ice. One single carved marble piece weighs over 200 tons, traveled 70 kilometers on frozen roads, No machines, just human will. The Forbidden City completed in 1420. The Yongle king officially moved the capital from Nanjing to Beijing, and for the next 491 years, through the rest of the Ming Dynasty and the entire Qing Dynasty, this palace would be the political heart of China. The numbers. Let me give you the numbers so you can picture the scale. 720 square meters. For reference, that's about 100 standard football pitches. Within that, 980 buildings, roughly 8,707 rooms. Now, you hear the legend that it says it has 9,999 rooms, one room short of 10,000. Why? Because in Chinese cosmology, 10,000 was a number of perfection, reserved for the gods. The Jade Emperor in heaven had 10,000 rooms. The earthly emperor could come close but never equal the divine. So that's where 9,999 rooms come from. In reality, the count today is about 8,700 rooms. The rest were lost to centuries of fires and risk constructions. But the fact that they aimed for 9,999 tells you everything about how this place was designed. Even the numbers had meaning. The whole complex is surrounded by a 10-meter defensive perimeter and a moat 52 meters wide. 4 gates. South Gate, 午门. The Meridian Gate, men's ceremonial entrance. This is where you go in. North Gate, 神武门. The gate of divine powers. This is where you come out. East Gate, 东华门. The east glorious gate. West Gate, 西华门. The west glorious gate. The palace splits into 2 halves. The outer court in the south and the inner court in the north. Outer court was for public, ceremonials, government businesses, audiences. Inner court was private, the emperor's family, his concubines, the domestic world. And we'll talk much more about that in episode 2, and why it mirrors the layout of a traditional Beijing courtyard homes. The people who lived here at its peak during the Ming Dynasty, the Forbidden City housed the emperor, the empress, up to 3,000 concubines. Yes, 3,000, you heard it right. Along with tens of thousands of eunuchs, hundreds of maids and servants. That number always shocks people, and you should. We'll dig into that, what concubine system actually looked like in episode 2 as well. How it worked, and who those women were, how they survived. Across these 491 years, 24 emperors lived and ruled from here. 14 from the Ming Dynasty and 10 from the Qing Dynasty. The shortest reign, the Taichang Emperor, 1 month. The longest reign, the Kangxi Emperor of the Qing Dynasty, 61 years. And the youngest to take the throne, Puyi, which is also the last emperor, who was crowned at the age of 2. His coronation is one of the most extraordinary stories in the Forbidden City's history. We'll dig into that more in episode 3. Visiting tips. So this is a quick practical section for anyone planning to go. First of all, tickets. Buy in advance online, Palace Museum website or the WeChat mini program. You need your passport number when booking. Daily limits is 30,000 visitors. They sell out really fast, especially spring and autumn. 1 entrance, the Meridian Gate, 午门, the South Gate, and there's only 1 exit too. Gate of Divine Power, North Gate. No re-entering once you're out, you're out. Second of all, how you get there. You most likely, I would say, you walk there if you're, staying really close by, or you take the metro subway. You take the line number 1 and go to Tiananmen East Station. Third of all, you need comfortable shoes. You will cover 3 to 5 kilometers. In the summer, there's no shade in the outer courtyards. It's brutal. Bring water, sun cream. Make sure you're protected. In the winter, Beijing winter is like Siberian cold. I mean that literally. The wind comes straight down from Siberia with nothing to slow it down. You need thermals, a proper coat. But if it snows, drop everything and go. Snow in the Forbidden City is a time machine. Red rooftops, golden tiles, white courtyards. The crowds disappear because most tourists avoid the cold. Photographers, this is your shot. The red and white contrast only happen in a handful of times each winter, and it is extraordinary. And one trend you will see, people renting traditional clothing, Ming and Qing court outfits, full robes, amazing handmade details, hair accessories is becoming massive in the last few years, especially among Chinese visitors. You can rent it from shops near entrance or book online. Some packages include a photographer too. Price starts around 200 to 300 RMB. The photos, especially in the quieter side of the palace, are spectacular. You have to try it out. The Forbidden City 101 almost wrapped up. 5,000 years of civilization, a philosophy that turned ideas into hierarchy into physical buildings. A Mongolian grandson of Genghis Khan who made Beijing a capital. A man who stole a throne from his own nephew and built the biggest palace in history to prove he deserved it. The longest man-made canal created for the construction of the Forbidden City. 1 million people whose names we will never know. And then a new dynasty, the Qing, the Manchurians, who built it from ruins and layered their own identity on top of it all. 3 dynasties, 1 palace, 600 years still standing. In episode 2, we take a closer look at this amazing palace. How every color, number, rooftop creatures was a deliberate choice. The fires, the invasions, the lootings. And where in the world you can still find pieces of Forbidden City if you don't have immediate travel plans to come to visit Beijing. Rate the show if you enjoyed it, leave a comment, or DM me. Find me on Instagram at A Day in Beijing, your conscious travel playbook for this city. Or if you want to, join one of my cultural experiences in Beijing. This is A Day in Beijing. Thanks everyone. I will see you in the next episode.